right, so we're here with Hayden, and we're trying to get her to get the right pelvic stability. So she normally has the posteriorly tipped pelvis, and we want to make sure that she has good stability when she's moving her legs. So we're going to use a couple different options. Here we just use a mat that's rolled up that's not as thick, and then another option is just like a half foam roller. This does tend to be a little bit high for younger athletes, so we like to start them on something a little bit easier, softer, smaller. So we're going to start with this, and we're just going to slide it right up underneath her hips. And now she can adjust that wherever she's comfortable, but the goal is to have it just high enough that she can still get her tailbone on the ground, and it's not just in her low back. So I still want her to have a point of contact feeling that tailbone while this tries to stay as low as possible so that we're forcing that pelvis to stay stable. And then what we're going to have her do first is just bring those feet up so that her knees are bent and everything's still on the floor. Now, if you have somebody that's really tight, this might be enough for them. They might not want to go any farther. Just give them a couple minutes to settle into this position. And then once they're good, we're going to start with marches. So Hayden, all you're going to do is just pick up one leg and then the other leg. And the whole time she's trying to keep her tailbone on the ground. Go ahead. So then as a coach, we're watching to make sure that those hips stay nice and stable between one side and the other side, that there's not a lot of rocking, and then always checking in with the athlete to make sure that their tailbone is still on the ground. So Hayden, do you still feel that tailbone on the ground?
Yes.
Good. And you can do these for time, you can do them for reps. It's whatever you're going to notice with your athlete. If they're real tight, you might need to do a lot more before it even starts to kick in and make a change. If you've been doing this for a while, they'll probably kick in pretty quick and be able to figure it out. So once they do that, the next progression would just be a heel tap out. So she's going to keep that tailbone down, but now she's going to extend one leg out and then bring it back up to the same position. And again, the goal here is to keep that tailbone down, but now we're teaching hip extension. A lot of times too, athletes will talk about their hips popping. This is a good drill to just try to get them to control that. And again, we're watching for any shifting or any tipping of that pelvis. So she's trying to keep it down as we work some hip extension. Good, Hayden, let's go one more on each side. Good, and then the last one I like to do with this roller in place is going to be like a full regular glute bridge, but every time I'm going to have her drop down and really be dramatic on that tip backwards. So go ahead and just do a regular bridge up, and then when she comes down, she's really going to focus on hitting her low back on that mat and then rolling till she feels that tailbone and then coming back up strong. On a normal position, we obviously wouldn't want to do anything this dramatic, but for somebody that we're trying to break that pelvic tip, this is a good way for them just to get a good feeling of what it even feels like to get that dramatic arch the other way. Good, let's do one more. And because this has been on the low back and kind of changing, what the athlete normally feels, make sure that they don't rush out of this position. So Hayden, just go ahead and lift those hips and go ahead and slide the mat out. And then I just want you to lay there for a couple minutes. So then I just have the athletes just lay here and just readjust. If they're real tight, again, maybe give them a minute or two. Otherwise, just go ahead and kind of have them just loosen up a little bit before they just jump right back up. All right, so we're back, and this could be a drill that you could use to start a session or end a session as well. If you just want to implement some good mechanics on the way after a session for an athlete that has this problem, this would be a good way to work a hamstring stretch. So most athletes that have this posterior tilt, when they do a hamstring stretch, everything's connected from their low back all the way through those glutes and down through the hamstring. This is a way that we're trying to get them to separate that and really get a good hamstring stretch while keeping their pelvis tipped in a different position. So we've got Hayden back under or over the roller here, and we still could have used the half roller, but again, with her preference, she just likes that smaller style. When we put her on the bigger one, she can't have her tailbone on the ground. It's just a little too uncomfortable. So she's chosen that version. And then we're going to ask her to do the same straight leg raise that you would normally do with a hamstring stretch. You can hold this 30 seconds to a minute, depending on the athlete's preference, but the goal is to keep that tailbone on the ground. So Hayden, when you're ready, just nice and easy, go ahead and pull that up. And she's only trying to go until she gets a good hamstring stretch. We're not trying to go to max. She's not going to pull this up any farther. The pelvis is tipped very dramatic the other way. So we're only trying to get a good hamstring stretch where the athlete can feel that sensation. For an athlete with a dramatic posterior tilt, this is going to be pretty dramatic for them. So after you hold this for 30 seconds to a minute, she can go ahead and drop that down and then make these active straight leg raises. But when she pulls up, I want her to use that hip flexor on the front. We're not just using the hands to pull the foot. I want her to activate that hip flexor, the quads, everything to pull up into that hamstring stretch and then hold for about 5 seconds. So Hayden, go ahead and pull up. She's gonna find a comfortable level. We're gonna hold that for about 5 seconds and try to get that hip flexor working. And then just nice and easy on the way back down. And then we're gonna do the same thing. Every time we ask that athlete to make sure their tailbone is down and that hip flexor is what they're focused on feeling. They will end up with a hamstring stretch. We're focused on using that hip flexor. They might even notice that their that their hip flexor cramps. If that's the case, just have them relax, shake it out a little bit, and then try to come back. Let's do one more good one. Great job. All right, so the last drill we use is actually more like a strengthening drill and to teach them their core strength with pelvic control. So we're gonna have an athlete start on their hands and knees, first making sure that they're in a neutral spine. Once we're there, all we're going to ask them is to just lift their knees up off the ground. They're going to hopefully feel their quads. We as coaches are watching this area. With someone that's really not well controlled through their hips, you're gonna see this immediately roll under. So I'm looking for her strength just to be able to maintain good core strength and then straight up and down knees, okay? Go ahead and raise up too high. If she were to come straight up, keep going. This would be the wrong position. If you had an athlete do this, look towards their quads. They're probably not turning them on. So go ahead and drop all the way back down for me and just reset from the base. So from here, you're gonna see, now it's a lot of quads and she's really having to work to maintain this position, okay? Go ahead and rest down. So that's the first easy progression. Once an athlete can hold that and stabilize that, we're gonna go ahead and do what we call reverse mountain climbers. Again, trying to work pelvic stability, but now adding hip extension. So Hayden's gonna raise up in that same position and then she's going to alternate between her legs, just tapping backwards. Good. As coaches, we are watching that this leg in the front is staying right where it's at like 90 degrees. We don't want to see them shift backwards. We want to see the hips doing two different things. Quad activation, hip extension, and then able to switch sides the whole time, maintaining a nice neutral back. Go ahead and give me one more. Excellent job. And then drop back down. So the last one is probably the toughest position for anybody that has this posterior tilt. And you might see Hayden even struggle with this a bit because she very much likes to round those hips under. This is gonna ask that she stays up and then really demand a lot of those quads and the glutes at the same time. So Hayden, you're gonna go ahead and come up and we're gonna do like donkey kicks to the ceiling. So she's gonna try to keep one knee low and then alternate heel kicks to the ceiling. Go ahead. Great job. Excellent job. As coaches, again, we're watching to make sure that this does not raise up. We're watching that the knees on the bottom are staying at the same position. And then we're hoping that that heel can be raised up. With practice, they will hopefully get to that parallel position without buckling. We don't want to see the pelvis move here. Now we're going for core stability, quad strength, and glute strength. Go ahead and finish with this one. And then drop down. Great job.